The festive season is done. Some of us are returning to work, or most of us are returning to work, some with renewed energy, while others are returning with depleted energy, which is kind of an oxymoron because we entered a long stretch of holiday. And, in the previous episode, we were saying we had a lot of downtime, we were slowing down, and yet we feel exhausted, And in the workplace, one of the commonly used words is stress. You hear people saying, I'm stressed about this, I'm stressed with work. And I find that maybe sometimes we don't know how to define stress. What is stress? What are the triggers? How do I know I am stressed? And then how do I manage stress? Welcome to Reality Check. We help you demystify some of these concepts and then equip you with tools to succeed, especially in the workplace and in your families and in your relationships. My name is Reachel Mwine. I'm your host. I'm back again with Dr. Evas, a twinner. She's a trained therapist, relationship coach, a parenting coach, and a family therapist. Also the founder of International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. Welcome, Dr. Evas.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Stress, we use this word a lot. Sometimes we misuse it. Maybe we are just frustrated and we say we are stressed, or we are angry and we say we are stressed. Maybe define for us what stress is, especially in regard to the workplace.
Stress is stress.
It is stress.
So stress is usually, it comes with a negative connotation, but I'm going to probably surprise my listeners and say stress is, actually, we all need a little bit of stress.
Oh, do we?
So what is stress? Let me not forget what you asked me. So stress is a natural response to external pressure. Where does it come from? It comes from the fact that that human nature was created to desire pleasure.
Got it. Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So we are not created to desire stress.
Not at all.
We are created to desire pleasure and happiness and wellness. And so anything that works, that threatens that then creates stress. So stress is just a natural response, and I'm emphasizing that because people feel guilty that they are stressed. It's normal. It's normal because we face pressures, different pressures. Last time we were talking about mental health and stress, and by the way, it's all about stress and stress management. Mental health is about our ability to manage that.
Yes.
And so stress is that natural response when your pleasure, your ability to feel pleasure and happiness is threatened. And where does it come from? So when you face pressure, for instance, work pressure, your job is threatened, your relationship is not doing well, all that. So what happens is that the body produces what we call stress hormones. There are two, cortisol and adrenaline.
Got it.
And so these hormones are within our bodies to help us respond to emergencies.
Okay, you're being chased by a dog, or you're being chased by thieves. Okay. Yeah.
So when there is threat, so the body just produces that. They activate the brain to think very fast, generate quick solutions, and then they are supposed to be flushed out of the bloodstream. So you're not supposed to live in
that flight
mode.
Yeah.
Now, so that flight mode is normal, is inevitable. Let me emphasize that. It happens to anyone. We don't live in everlasting comfort.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So there will be things that will destabilize our comfort, and so the body just responds. So stress is normal.
Okay.
That's an important point to make.
Yes.
And so the next time you're stressed, don't hate it terribly that you get frustrated and then keep in the stress and then make it worse and make it worse and then plunge into depression.
Yeah.
So Can I also make the point that humans need a little bit of stress? So there is what we call healthy stress.
Okay.
Right? I usually use an example, an illustration from people who have, how do I call it? Who have the benefit, is it benefit or gifts of working under pressure?
It seems to be a requirement in different corporate environments.
Do you understand?
Yes.
And so that's why different corporates indicate when they are recruiting ability to work under pressure. Because there's so much pressure. And by the way, the world is getting more and more and more and more pressure. So the thing is, do you break down under pressure, or do you actually take advantage of the stress and make good decisions and grow? You know, growth is never rooted in comfort. No. There's no growth in comfort. We need a bit of comfort. Like now we've been talking about the festive season. You wake up to nothing. Nothing is pushing
for
you.
A period of
for
time.
a period of time.
Yes.
But don't live like that entirely.
Yeah.
And so we need that bit of pressure. You know, you need to have a timeline. That's why there are deadlines. Yeah? Why do they call it a deadline? What do you think? And what does it signal? What is the connotation of a deadline? Deadline. And so that's why there are deadlines. When you know that you're working towards something, and if you skip that, if you go beyond that, then there is death. You know, so that there is something, there is a little bit of pressure that we need, and we need healthy stress, because then the brain works more. You know, it engages more, it opens up, it sees so many, so you don't sit there and, well, I don't know what to do. No, because there's pressure. You have to do this. You're about to lose the job. So what do? You improve. You challenge your mind to say,
I have to do this.
I have to do this. What is it that I'm not doing well? You know, reflect. Do that kind, challenge the brain and think. You know, if your relationship is breaking, you just sit back and say, you know,
it is what it is.
It is the enemy is against me. You know, I have nothing to do. No, so we all need a little bit of stress to be better, to grow, and you know, improve ourselves and all that. So stress in itself is not so bad. So we need to respond to pressure, but in a healthy way without breaking down.
Okay. So, and that note is the one I want to pick up on, because you said we need a little bit of stress. It helps us grow, it helps us think and challenge our minds and brains to work better. What are some of them so when does it become unhealthy?
When it gets unhealthy is when we do not respond properly. And the response is determined by how we identify and name the trigger. Because there's so many stress triggers, so many. Finances, relationships, you know, job insecurity, business going bad. So when it goes bad, what kind of analysis do you do? Now, let me leave business. That's not my area. Let me talk about things I know. And so, for instance, relationships. And just when I came back from the Christmas break, I've started off and having all these long sessions with couples. But it's very interesting. So I remember, for instance, a couple that I was counseling, and someone mentions and says, my marriage is so bad. So I ask, what is the problem? What exactly has made this marriage bad? Now, talking to both of them, they are really good people. According to them, both of them doing great things. They are good people doing good things, doing the right things, but they have a bad marriage.
So where's the problem?
So where is the problem? You see? The relationship is bad, or this. Now what happens is that when we are identifying a problem, we are not naming it the right way.
Yes.
And when we get into what do you think is your contribution to a day, I may be.
It's never definite.
It's never definite. Maybe, and what do you think you need to do differently? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe, but
yeah, the other person.
So, my point is identifying what that trigger is. Identify it properly. Of course, last time we were talking about identifying how you feel, naming your emotion. You know, you're angry, but what are you angry about? Who are you angry with? And what can you do? Because you remember, stress is about people who live healthy are not, they don't lack stress, they manage stress.
It's not that they are devoid of it.
They're devoid of it.
They are managing
They just manage it. And management begins with what is the trigger.
Acknowledging it.
First of all, acknowledging it. People are in denial.
Oh, yeah.
They say, oh, I'm good.
Oh,
good.
I'm okay.
Oh, terrific. Oh, wonderful.
Terrific.
Terrific. But then they're not doing well. So identify the problem, name it properly, identify your contribution. Can I emphasize that?
That's a hard one. Please emphasize it.
Can I emphasize it? And by the way, that's where we have a problem. There is a problem that has happened. This is what is causing stress to your marriage and to you. You don't want to be responsible.
No.
Someone else should make you happy. You know, someone who has taken pleasure out of you should fix it. But you know that the secret is in what contribution can I make? Have I made to this problem? And what contribution can I make towards solving the problem? That's how we manage stress. And so it could be, by the way, you could be 2% responsible. I encourage. Please take that. Just own up to that 2%. And then your partner or your business partner or whoever, whatever it is that is causing stress, please check what your contribution is and what you can do to solve it. Can I also emphasize it, Rachel, that every time, why do we get stressed? The reason we get stressed is there is pressure, and how we avoid continuing or plunging into more and more stress is when we know that we have a solution.
Yes.
Every time there is something happening and you say, I will resolve it this way. You may not have started. The mind ceases to get stuck. Because when we get stuck, we get stressed and we continue. So every time you wake up and say, I don't know what to do. Sooner or later, you're going to plunge into depression because you're moving from a place of stress and anxiety and helplessness to hopelessness. Now, you don't want to get to hopelessness because when you're still dealing with helplessness, you're thinking, you're like, what can I do? Probably I can do this. But when you get to a state where you say, I have failed, then you plunge into depression. Right? So that's why we encourage, please identify what is causing you problems. Analyze it. What needs to be done to solve it? What on your part can you do? What are you asking the other party to do? Because stress is from relationships. And relationships is how we relate with the world, how we relate with one another, how we relate with the supernatural. Period.
That's it.
And supernatural doesn't have to be God. Some people, their supernatural is not God. But don't worry about that. Conversation for another time. But the thing is, how are you generating options to solve this? And how are you engaging the other party that is causing this? And I'm glad we're talking about this, and we'll get to the workplace. But I will be able to expound more on some of this.
And I imagine that there's an order in which you go about managing the stress. So you can't start looking for a solution without identifying the problem. And I find that many times you find people trying to find a solution before they have identified a problem and their contribution to the problem.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and so
and naming the problem.
Yes,
Because sometimes
yes.
you name people as the problem.
that too.
Do you understand?
Yeah, that's true.
Naming. So
Yeah.
identify what is the problem. What we call the what, distinguishing the what from the who.
From the who. Yes.
So the problem could have happened, but the person is not the problem. Actually, the problem. Separate it from the person. Whether it is your colleague at work, your partner, your child, the problem is different from the who.
The who. Yeah.
So put it there and name it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Name it. Yeah. So your partner is not the problem. It is that problem.
It's a hard pill for many wives to
You
swallow.
understand?
Many wives and husbands that their partner.
Yes.
It's easier to blame a
That's the
human
thing.
being. Yeah.
And then it's natural. It's
It is
normal.
natural.
It's so normal, but it's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the order is identify.
Yeah.
Name it the right way. Name your emotions towards it. How do you feel about it? Right? What are the options to solving the problem? List them. What can you take responsibility for? I forgot what is your contribution? Yeah, so there is a problem, but what is your contribution? And at that level, what is another person's contribution? And what are the strategies to solving?
Yeah.
And those strategies should include yours.
Yeah, you can't absolve yourself of any responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, let's shine a light on the workplace because stress is a word and an issue that is dealt a lot, in the workplace. Relationships with managers and all of that. What are some of the triggers, I guess, in your line of work? Because I know you support a lot of corporate organizations. What are some of the triggers you have interacted with that our audience needs to be mindful of?
Okay. Triggers in the workplace, very many. Number one, the job itself. And sometimes people don't have clarity
on what they're doing.
Job role.
Yes.
So someone gets in, they lack clarity. There's so many conflicts we deal with in the workplace is people lack clarity. Yeah, they lack clarity. Someone is in, they are doing this, the following day they are called to do this, they don't have this. And some places, but it's very strange that, of course, there are places which recruit properly, they give you a job description and all that. That's the starting point for anyone to have good mental health or to avoid stress, to avert stress in the workplace. But when someone gets in, they don't have clarity on their job roles, and there are so many, or their jobs are changing and all. That's a big stress trigger. The second one is the relationships. We've noticed that people are not mindful of how they treat each other in the workplace. Now, I want to remind people that, my colleagues in the workplace, that's a place where we spend the biggest chunk of our daytime. So if someone comes in at 8 and they leave at 5 or 6 or 7, they are basically going home to sleep.
Yeah. And
in our town, people spend another 2 hours in traffic. And then they get home and they only sleep. But we have to be mindful of the person leaving that workplace. First of all, when they are coming in, how are they feeling about this workplace? Do they love it? Do they dread it? And how can each one of us make the other person's life better in the workplace? You'll have heard me say that the workplace is a reflection of each one of us's behavior. Or we all want a healthy workplace. Oh, that place is toxic. But who made it toxic? And the toxicity is rooted in how we treat each other. How do we treat each other? How do you make another person feel? But it's so simple. That's why I always want, when we say, make the workplace a healthy, no, that's too big. But how do we treat each other? How do you make another person feel.
Yeah.
Now, just imagine if you thought about that, I thought about that, he thought about it, another person thought about it. That's how we make a healthy workplace.
Yes.
How do I make, when I'm thinking, when I'm talking, when I keep quiet, how do I make this person feel? So, very important that each one of us, before we go to managers, I'm going to talk about managers, but before we go to managers, how do we as colleagues relate? The words you say. Some of the words are so mean. People get deflated because they've been told you're not good enough. How do I? We gossip about people. We say mean things about them. How do we make each other feel? If we paid attention to that, we would reduce stress. Because stress is number 3, managers. I really want to speak to managers. And one of the decisions this year we are making, Rachel, as we're going to be more, it's not intentional, but we are going to really aggressively reach out to the workplaces to train managers. I talked about a training we do called Magic Leadership. It's a psychological tool that helps managers to know how to treat people and to make their people work better by activating so much emotional energy and love for the work, what we call connection to the work. And I really want to appeal to managers. If you are in charge of a team, if you're in charge of a team, be mindful of how people feel. Don't just look at how they are working, targets and reports and deadlines. There's a place for those, but be mindful that emotional energy that people put in is the biggest amount of energy, how they feel. If they feel stressed, they feel anxious, they feel insecure, they feel unfairly treated, they feel the manager is not really empathetic. You know, they feel that manager is not approachable. Some of the managers have this open door policy, but their hearts are not open.
They're not. It's just the door that's open.
You know, so the door is open, but the heart is not open. Are you approachable? And when you say words, a leader's words are powerful. They carry so much power. Don't just say a careless word. Don't ask someone, how did we end up with you? No, we've heard those statements.
Ouch.
You understand? Wow. And so someone says, how did we even end up with you? Just remind me, how did what
was the process?
The process? No. That person, by the way, is in your hands to be nurtured. You want them to leave with a story of, I came in inadequate, I've left better because of the manager that this one was. I pray that each manager will be really committed to that. Don't complain about bad teams. You know, I've had managers say, I don't know, I'm very unfortunate, I just need bad teams. Those are the teams you need to make better, because an inadequate team, you have an opportunity to make a big difference. But begins with how you treat people, how people feel, because that will determine whether they are stressed or happy. And when they are happy, they have so much energy, emotional energy to invest in them because they love it. You know, so their hearts connect with the hands.
And you get more out of them.
But if they are stressed, they will show up, but they are deflated. They have no, that's why, you know, every time I'm training managers, I tell them to be observant. Someone came in with so much energy, they were doing, all of a sudden they are withering away. What's happening? And then we say, what's wrong with you? You know, wrong question to ask is, do you need any help? Do you have any challenges? Is there anything you would want me to know that is affecting your work, but not what's wrong? Because when you say what's wrong, that actually makes people shut down even the more.
It's more condemnation.
It's more,
than I want to help
more
you,
negative energy.
Oh, wow. So in the workplace, you've talked about relationships with each other. You've talked about our relationships really with managers, and then the lack of clarity in terms of.
I have one more point.
Yes.
I also want to. One of the ways to manage stress is also people knowing what is causing them stress. Most of the time, it's not your manager. Most likely, it's you.
Okay.
You know, how do you do things?
Yeah.
Because I've interacted with people that have a performance issue. But human nature is such that we have a challenge owning up to, you know. And I want to encourage people, own up. By the way, do you know that anything you don't own up to, you cannot change it?
That's true.
You make this mistake, you come late, and you can't say sorry. Because you're trying to avoid taking responsibility. But when you identify what is causing me stress, what is my contribution towards this, it's very important.
Yeah.
Before you go to say, my manager is wicked, I've talked about managers, my boss, honestly, that company, just check what could you be responsible for, what is causing stress to you. Then following up on that, I want to encourage. One of my experiences is that people don't know, especially in this country, they don't know how to speak up.
And I want us to get to that as we talk about managing stress.
Yes.
Because you and I, we are always talking about how people don't know how to speak up.
Yeah.
And we are timid, and it's like, if I speak up,
we are humble.
We are humble. If I speak up, I'm going to be seen as disrespectful. I'm going to be seen as insubordinate. Again, I was listing the things that you mentioned. You talked about lack of clarity in terms of, you know, your job, your relationship with your manager as triggers for stress. Knowing
and relationship with other people.
And relationships with other people, but also your part, you as an individual. How then do we manage stress now that we kind of know where the triggers are likely to come from? How
do we manage? So as I mentioned earlier, stress management is in identifying where it's coming from. That's a secret. And are people ready to go that end? As I was saying, that we quickly go to blame things around us, people and things around us. But do we identify? Do we know? Are we comfortable saying, I think I'm the problem. I think I have a problem here. You come in late and you say, this person also can complain. You understand? You don't submit reports in time, and then you don't own up. But when we own up, when we know that the stress is actually coming from here, then we see options. And I want to emphasize the issue of options. Please, every problem, I've mentioned it here, that every problem is solvable.
It's solvable.
And there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem.
Solve it, yes.
I used to watch a movie. What was it?
10,000 ways to die, or something like that.
But now today I want to say there are 10,000 ways to solve a problem. Every problem is solvable. There's nothing like I have nothing to do about it. No, there's something to do about it. That's a very important statement I'm making. There's something to do about it. And when I'm working with people to solve a problem, I go, we first analyze it, and then I say, what options do you think we have? Right? So that's what we call generating options. And they could seem impossible. But it's very important to generate them and say, you know, if all factors constant, I would, you know, this probably would talk to my boss, because whenever I'm working with workplace colleagues, that's what we do. So we generate all this, and I say, what seems impossible? You know, if I talk to my boss, they'll fire me. Right? And then we talk about how to talk well so that you don't get fired. You know?
Got it. Because there's a way to talk.
Because there's a way to talk. Because there's a way that will get you fired.
For sure.
Even when you have a good point.
Yes, for sure.
You see that? Yeah, so that's very, very key. You know, generate options. What are they? And once we become, because stress management, by the way, is about problem solving. Simple. The problem has come, how can it be solved? And every time you solve a problem, you become better.
For sure.
Because problem solving is a skill. And we only get mastery over all these things when we do them repeatedly.
Yeah.
So, if we repeatedly solve a problem, then we're good. So, generate issues and following up on that, take action. You cannot manage stress by not taking action.
It's not possible.
Yes, there's an action to be taken.
Yeah.
And it has to happen.
Yeah.
If we don't, then you just keep
rotating around.
Yes. And by the way, you don't just keep rotating. It moves from one stage. Can I mention that?
Yes.
I mentioned earlier that there's healthy stress. But once stress is not managed, it runs on a spectrum. Actually, there are 4 stages of stress. So you have the healthy stress, and you're still okay. A problem has come, you're not entirely comfortable, you're destabilized a bit, but you're still good. You're fine. You can still sleep, you can still eat. Maybe not to, but you're still okay. That's called a healthy stage of stress. But we have a second stage called reaction stage. When you don't solve a problem, when you don't analyze it well, when you don't give your brain a message that this is going to be solved, you're likely, because stress hormones just keep coming, they keep coming, the body continues to activate them. So you're going to cross to a second stage called reaction. Reaction stage, then you start showing manifestations of unwellness. Yeah? You now can't sleep, you're procrastinating,
you're snappy
a little bit, you're moody, you're losing your memory, so many things are getting affected. And so it's not yet as bad, but you're reacting. Then we move, if you still don't deal with the trigger, you're going to move from reaction stage to a stage we call injury. Right? So a little mood disorder now has gotten into serious irritational, situations, and now you're angry, you're becoming angry, you have sleep disorders, right?
Yeah.
You're getting funny dreams, all these dreams,
like hallucinations,
and we quickly run to the devil. This devil has suffered
also.
You understand?
Yes.
Now I will speak as a Christian.
Yeah.
You see, the devil has triggered.
Yeah.
But how you manage?
He's involved, but you also have to play.
But you have to do something. You have to partner with the Lord, if I may say, to do the right thing. And that's why I was talking about options to solving. Because some of them probably you need to say sorry and you can't. Probably you need to own up and take responsibility. This morning I was doing a little Bible study with my son as we drove to school, and we were studying the character of David. And he asked me, why was David called the man after God's own heart? And I said, it's because he had a soft heart that repented. He owned up. If you read Psalms 51. Yes, he said, he's owning up in sin. I own up to this. My sin is before me and all that. And I know my sin. You see? So sometimes, by the way, solving a problem begins with that. Own up. So if you don't, you're going to cross to that stage, which is more dangerous. So little symptoms now cross to injury. And then people start being withdrawn. They lose pleasure. There's no happiness. They're getting more sad. And so that's a very dangerous stage. Now, if you don't deal with the trigger still, and you're still processing it, you're going to cross to a stage we call illness. So that's where you hear the whole thing of mental illness. So that's why I tell people, not every stressed person is
is mentally
ill.
Yeah.
No, there's stress, but there's healthy stress, there's manageable stress. Stage 1 and 2, you can manage it by talking to Reachel, your friend, and someone else, you know,
finding
pray,
solutions.
you know, it can be managed at that level. But stage
3 and
4 are very dangerous. Stage 4, which is illness, that means you're depressed. So not every stressed person is depressed.
Yes.
And so don't wait to plunge into depression, because at the depression stage, now sadness has crossed to anger outbursts.
Whoa.
You know?
Yeah.
Serious procrastination, withdrawal, loss of energy, dysfunctionality in the workplace. You show up, but you can't do anything.
Not doing anything.
Suicidal ideation. You know, now people are thinking, because that's a stage of hopelessness.
There's no hope anywhere.
There's no hope anywhere, because the mind, the brain has made the conclusion that it has failed. You've scanned the horizon and realized that there's no solution to something. And I want to emphasize again, there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem.
Yes.
But when you're in the midst of it, it seems like you cannot. You can't do it.
Yeah.
That's why I encourage people, please seek therapy.
Help. Yeah.
Be careful who you talk to, because some of them are going to actually make you feel worse. You tell someone, oh, my partner cheated. What? How could he do or she do that to you?
You know.
And that's you know, that happens. It's good for immediate emotional reaction.
Yes.
But then what is the solution? You see? So we all have to be solution focused in terms of managing stress. So don't get an issue you think, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
No. 1,000 ways
to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I mean, God forbid that, you know, you're in stage 3 and 4 and you are not just a manager, but you're a dad, you're a husband, because then the ripple effect of your unmanaged stress to your family, your children, you know, your wider family becomes, you know.
It's going to spill over.
For sure.
It's going to spill over, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to appeal to people in leadership. It reminds me that the companies we support, most of the people who use services are lower cadre.
Yes.
You know,
not
and
managers,
yes, most of the time it's lower cadre, and it's okay. But it's this sense of, then I also speak to someone, I'm a big person, but they suffer.
Yeah.
There's, you know, I tell people that there is a devil for every level.
Say that again.
Yes. So there's a devil for every level. There are stress triggers for every level. And so if someone is a driver, there are certain things that will cause stress to them. If you're a manager, middle level, there are certain things that will cause stress to you. There are certain generic stress triggers, but there are certain things that are really, really peculiar to different levels. And people in leadership, I really want to speak to you. Please know that you suffer stress. And please know that even in that leadership position, you need to speak to someone. You know, we all need help. We are never too big for help.
That's true.
Or too old for help. Help is help. And so this narration, you know, because we all get stuck, I always tell people that you can't see the picture properly if you're within the frame.
Yes.
Yes. So every time we are in the frame of stress, we don't see so many options. You know, that's why sometimes we make wrong decisions. You just say, and fired them, then it creates something because you're operating under pressure. But once you process stress, you try to empathize, you understand where someone is coming from. Maybe they gossiped about you, or they whistle blue.
Whistle blue, yes.
Or something. Yes, it's terrible, all these things that happen to you in a position of leadership. They could sound so terrible, but you need to process them.
Yes.
And you just the same tips I shared earlier. Same thing. for problem solving. First process it. For stress management, first process this. Don't react impulsively. No, step back, breathe, and process. Where is this coming from? Where could I have made a contribution? And of course, leaders have the advantage to think that the problems are created by lower people. I mean, same thing like parents, we think children are always wrong.
Yes, yes.
Leaders.
It's a mentality.
It's a mentality. But we become stronger when we own up.
That's true.
I can never stop reminding us that there is so much power in humility.
Yeah, there is
so much power in humility. We think there's so much. We think power roars. No, power doesn't roar. Power that roars is actually not great. A power that is rooted in wisdom and humility is powerful.
Amazing. Amazing.
Powerful, you know. So I really want to encourage managers to just step back and know that they need help
as well. Yeah. Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Evas. This conversation on stress management cannot be stressed enough. So if you need to rewatch this with a notebook and take down notes, especially on the process of managing stress, I think you will find that it will be a valuable process in you handling not just the workplace, but home, stress with family, stress with your external environment. And the triggers are everywhere. It's the border rider, it's the traffic jam, it's the government, it's the potholes on the road.
I know.
Anything could potentially stress you out. So thank you so much for being our wisdom today. And I dare say, get the wisdom, get the knowledge, and also get the understanding. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Let us know how you are dealing with stress. What are your current stress triggers? How did you understand stress before you watched this show? And if this has been helpful, let us know in the comment section. We'll be back again next week. We enjoy your feedback, so keep it coming. And do remember to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to this channel, like it, comment, and share it with a friend. Until next time, bye-bye.